Welcome to the Soul Work Podcast, a space where we dive into the journey of reconnecting with our body, our intuition, and our soul's true divine purpose. Each week, we will explore how to heal from within using body centered wisdom, somatic and holistic healing practices, and engage in soulful healing and transformative conversations that will support you on your path to wholeness. In this podcast, we'll uncover ways to recognize the messages our bodies is sending us, transform old wounds, and step fully into our divine power. So whether you're here to break free from past patterns, build resilience, or simply deepen your soul's awareness, this space is dedicated to your growth, your healing, and your unique soul journey. So take a deep inhale and exhale. Settle in, grab your cup of tea, and let's do the soul work together. This is your Soul Work Podcast for your soul's work. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Soul Work Podcast with Love, Ashleie Elaine. My name is Love, Ashleie Elaine, and I am here to be your guide as we do the soul work for our soul's work. This episode, we are in episode 3 of a beautiful collaborative series that I'm doing with my homegirl, Intuitive Keys. It has been amazing, y'all. Just so grateful for this partnership. This episode, we are talking about healing and rebuilding after narcissistic abuse and really focusing on you and your healing, right? We already know what the narcissist's goal has been in our relationship. But now that we have broken free, now that we have given ourselves permission to come back home to self, what does that actually look like? How do we go about it? What are some tips and tools? And if y'all haven't picked up on the vibe already with me and my homegirl Keys, we tap into those spiritual practices, the somatic practices. What do I need to realign my mind, body, and soul and have my rebirth, come back home to myself? So prepare your mind, your body, your soul, get your cup of tea, all the things, and prepare yourself for this most beautiful episode. And go.
Hey y'all, welcome back to our series Love After Narcissistic Abuse. My name is Rakia Chantel. I go by Intuitive Keys.
And I am Love, Ashleie Elaine.
And we have collaborated to bring you into a safe, sacred space of vulnerability, healing, and affirmation, giving you space to know that loving yourself is possible and being in a healthy relationships and partnership is possible as well. So this episode, y'all, we are diving into self-love and what that looks like, how it feels. We're calling in the girls, okay? I want the girls
Yes.
to really get in tune on this episode and just relax, sit down, get your journals, grab what you need as we really get into it, And yes, when you think about like self-love and self-care, what does that look like to you? So
Mm.
get what you need. Ash is going to take us into some breath work. Keys is going to pull a card. And yeah, welcome to the space.
Yeah. So go ahead and find that comfortable seated posture. You can also lie down. If you're driving, you know the drill. Save it for when you get to a settled place. Keep your eyes on the road. And take a nice big inhale and exhale. And as you exhale, slowly begin to bring your gaze down your nose, or you can completely close your eyes. Feel into what is going to keep you safe in your space and within your body. And just locate your breath. Locate where it begins and where it goes back to. And I want to do just a mini visualization of you loving yourself. Just begin to visualize loving yourself. What does that look like? What does it feel like? How is this being done? And flowers are coming to my mind, envisioning yourself going and being in a garden of picking fresh flowers for yourself. What does that feeling feel like? You see the colors, what's vibrating within you. Maybe there's a song that starts coming into your heart space and you're humming it or you're singing it out loud. And you find this bushel of flowers that are just bringing you in awe. The color of those flowers to you represent your version of self-love. What is that color? And what are you feeling as you're seeing this color? As you're gazing at this color, as you're gazing at this particular flower? Maybe it's a rose, maybe it's a carnation, maybe it's a sunflower. But this is your particular flower and your particular color that represents your particular version of self-love. And now you've picked the flower and you're just living in the moment of this space. What does that look like? And again, what does that feel like? You take these flowers back into your home, you bundle them up, you put them in water. What does that process look and feel like for you? Holding on to the feel of this moment, holding on to the internal connection of this moment, bringing that to our heart space, bringing both hands over our heart. And we'll breathe it in, nice big inhale and exhale. And do that one more time, nice big inhale, holding that vision, that feel, and exhale. And one more time, nice big inhale and exhale. Mhm. And when you're ready, you can blink open your eyes. That was pretty.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. Thank you so much.
Mm.
What I saw in my mind's eye, um, I did before you said flowers, that's exactly where my mind went, and the sweetness and the essence of flowers, especially roses who hold, they say, the highest vibration of love, you know. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for the listeners or the viewers, you know, Valentine's Day was just today. So whether you celebrate it with a partner or by yourself, you know, what did you do to truly like love on yourself? Or even think of some ways that you can possibly like implement this more into your daily life, you know? As I was listening to you ask, what came to me was, let me clear my throat. And I was like, I almost wanted to do it, but I didn't want to disturb the meditation. And I was like, it
Mm.
was like, okay. And I started the channel, like, okay, somebody's rebirthing themselves, you know? It almost feels like an announcement, like,
Mm.
almost like somebody may be stepping into that self-care place where it's like, I got a new attitude, is what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, that feels spicy, you know, stepping into a
Yeah.
new persona. So you guys know, wow, I didn't really shuffle. The card fell out. Okay. What this card says is radical rebirth. I literally just said it. It's like somebody's going through a rebirth. It says radical rebirth. Okay. This is, if it feels like it's giving a lot of fire energy to it. Somebody could be a fire sign, or maybe you're just stepping into this space where you're calling in your power, you know,
Mm.
calling in your power back to you. Whatever that means for you, whether you are being more assertive, or you're standing up for yourself, or you're just taking better care of yourself. You know, it feels like somebody recently went through like a shedding period and possibly a lot of changes. So the number on this card is the number. Okay, background. It is the number five. Five in numerology is the number of change, you know.
Mm.
And think about how difficult change can be. Or let's say, for the viewers and the listeners out there, what changes are you going through right now? You know, that way you can give yourself a bit more of self-love and honor how you've changed, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, this lady is, I don't know, somebody's getting ready to cut their hair, or you're switching something up about your aesthetic. Maybe you're wearing different type of clothing or lighter clothes. Somebody could be getting into like crystal therapy as well. I'm hearing like sitting almost like sitting with yourself a bit more. So I'm actually going to go to the book on this one because it is the name Nahanda, and this is from my African Goddess Rising deck, just to see if there are any more messages out there that may resonate. Um, so the guidance from this card, it says, yes, you can. It says, stop the struggle. You can choose at any moment to start over and be reborn. Like the sun, you rise again and again. It's the embodiment of this card. It says, dust yourself off, move forward, and go for it again. Life is about transition and change. You will fall on your face, you'll change your mind, and you'll need to make a comeback again and again. So release the
Mm.
idea that you have messed things up if things aren't perfect. It says, stop waiting to be ready. Make new choices and decisions. And the goddess declaration or affirmation from this card is still I rise.
Spirit, hey.
Giving divine feminine, you know, that radical rebirth, standing up for yourself, you know, that goes straight within the topic of self-love. And I really meditated on what self-love is and how we show up for ourselves and what self-love means to me. So at
Yeah.
first, y'all, what I thought self-love was just making sure you look pretty. Okay. I was taught by black women and they said don't go out. If you're not going to dress the part, make sure your hair is done. Okay. Or go outside, don't go outside looking a mess. So I used to pride myself on that until that relationship happened, and then it completely knocked, you know, the things that I used to love about myself out the way, and I had to rediscover what self-love was all over again, coming out of a traumatic relationship, you know. So self-love to me, self-care to me, um personally speaking, it is giving myself what I need within that moment,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
because it looks different day to day with what I need. And within my practice that I have for myself. I have a self-care practice. I have started to implement, even if it's one day out the week, something that I do for myself. I've started buying myself flowers on like Sundays, which has become a ritual for me. And every Sunday I'll go and get new flowers, and more recently, especially because of the darker months, I've been taking a lot more baths.
Mm.
I need to soak in some water. Okay.
Mhm.
And ladies, sometimes water is your best friend. Sometimes why is my hand raised? Sometimes it did that before. It was like, yes, okay, yes, the baths. But self-care is really a practice. So I actually have I actually got a definition for y'all. I like to give the girls, some meaning and a little bit of context. We get all these definitions and with social media, things can get a little overwhelming, But if you needed a definition for self-care, self-care refers to the proactive steps individuals take to preserve and improve their physical, mental, and emotional well being. And it encompasses a wide range of activities aimed at promoting health, reducing stress, and relaxation. And I was like, okay, I think I'm doing this thing right, based on the definition. But when I was sad, y'all, it was so hard for me to do that.
Mm.
It was so hard for me to do that because I didn't know what made me happy.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I almost had to go on a journey to like figure that not even figure that out, figure who I was. Like the card said, that rebirth process. Um, when I went on my self-discovery journey, I realized that I was rebirthing myself. And that also meant that I had to go through a shedding phase. And I was releasing so many things. So my self-care looked like forgiving myself,
Mm.
you know, um, owning my part in the situation and taking accountability, because sometimes y'all, we girls, we get swayed, we get wooed off our feet and things like that. And we pour so much into other people, family, friends, past lovers, people now. And it's like, when do we really give that back to ourselves?
Yeah.
You know? So,
Yeah.
Ash, let's talk. How was Valentine's Day was yesterday? I see you in your pink.
Yes.
How
I see
you?
you in your red. I was like, okay, the love is here. The love
It's
is here.
here.
It's
It's here.
here.
A little color
It's
therapy.
yes, yes. Valentine's Day was beautiful. I've never had like a real Valentine,
Hmm.
right? I've never had like a date or anything like that. I've always had my son.
Hmm.
So I made Valentine's Day always about him. When he was younger, we'd go to Jamboree. The older he got, we'd go to the movies. I'd take him out to eat. I'm taking him on dates, all the
Hmm.
things. And the last few years, it was like, okay, how do I do this for myself, right? So I've always done this thing where it's like, I'm going to get dressed up and I'm going to take myself out and I'm going to do the things, and it just never happens. And yesterday was so beautiful, and I didn't do any of that. Right?
The
So,
joy.
like, right. So it's like I took care of me by buying myself flowers, buying myself
Right.
chocolate. Um, and then I took care of the people that I love by
Mm.
buying them flowers, right? I sent flowers to my mom. I sent flowers to, like, I hand delivered flowers to my aunt, hand delivered flowers to my grandmother, brought one of my girlfriends some chocolate, brought another friend, like a nice heart shaped thing for her house. It was just that, like, it's when you are on a self love and self care journey, you can see the evolution in your growth by
Yeah.
how you show up in love.
Yeah.
And it no longer became this thing of, I need a partner to, express this love to or to share Valentine's Day with. It even moved away from, I need to get fancy and dress up and go out and spend a whole bunch of money on food and, big time in the city type thing. It literally came down to, I just want to love on the people that love me.
Yeah.
And that was like, I was thinking about it last night and talking to another friend about it. And it was just like, I'm wealthy in the place of love,
Yeah.
I'm always going to be able to come back to that and lead from love, right? That's self-care for me. That's always been self-love for me is how do I heal loving myself and be able to express that to other people, like my girlfriends, my siblings, yes, my family, my son, right? Show up in a different way with that love. So Valentine's Day was beautiful. I was a little Cupid out here delivering flowers and
That is so
chocolate.
dope. That sounds so beautiful. Even to see the joy on your face,
Hmm.
almost like, you being able to give to others and bringing joy to others is something that also brought you joy as well. Talk about leading
Hmm.
from the heart. That's a really beautiful place to be in. Um,
Yeah. And
yeah,
finding that balance, right? Like
yeah,
even today, I still did something for myself. I went to a yin yoga self-love workshop. So it's like I still gave to other people and
yeah,
poured into myself and don't feel like, okay, well, I didn't do anything for me. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like I was tired by the end of the day because I was ripping and running all day, taught yoga classes, all the things. But it wasn't a tired of like I have emptiness
yeah,
or um I have nothing or you know what I'm saying or like
yeah.
oh nobody got me anything, right? Like one of my girlfriends got me chocolate too. I wasn't expecting anything from anybody else. I wanted to be the giver and be able to do that, and I was able to do that and not feel empty, which is like new coming out of, narcissistic relationships. You leave empty.
Yeah, yeah, and that's going to be a tough space to navigate. When it came down to self-love and what self-care looks like for me, and I just want to put this out there for anybody who may be in this relation in a toxic relationship with a narcissist or a controlling person, however you want to dress it up. Um, Another act of self-care is also making a decision to leave somebody alone. And I do think that a lot of women don't see it as that because we're so used to like self-care and self-love being like dressed up like material things that either we get or we have to give, and that represents a symbol of us loving somebody else. But when the more I sat with it and like meditating on this episode, it really made me think of, how self-love is also making a hard decision that you know is going to benefit you, even though it may break your heart in the present.
Mm, mm-hmm,
Because that's
mm-hmm.
ultimately you saying, I love myself to know that this is no longer this isn't loving to me. This doesn't feel good. You know,
Yeah,
and I love myself to say that this is no longer something that I want,
yeah. Mm.
and a part of that self-love is giving yourself that choice and reminding yourself that I have a choice and I don't have to stay somewhere where I am unhappy.
I had a therapist tell me that me filing for divorce is not only me setting a boundary, but an act of self-love.
Mm,
And I
wow.
was like, oh, I never,
Yeah.
because we always tell women, oh, why would you leave? Like, why would you leave
Yeah.
him? You're gonna have to start over and all these things, right? Divorce is a bad thing. And it's like, no, honey, leave. If you
Yeah.
if you feel that, leave. And then pay attention to how you feel after you left,
Yeah.
right? Is there a little bit more clarity? Is there like that,
Yeah. Like a
that
weight is
comes?
off of your shoulders. You feel a little bit lighter.
Yeah, yeah. So when she said that, I was like, ooh, game changer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, that's profound. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was coming out of that relationship, so for those who, I'll give you guys a little synopsis on my story, but I was in a relationship with a narcissist for close to just about like 8 years. And when I made the decision to leave, it also meant that I had to go back to my childhood home. And
Mm.
I hated being there. Like it was just this energy within the house and some things that happened to me during childhood that I felt like I ran from. So having to go back into that place, um, let's just say I had to get comfortable with being with the discomfort, with being
Hmm.
uncomfortable. And it really showed me, what love meant to be able to put myself to leave a worse situation to go back into discomfort, and still be able to recognize that this is still a good decision, for me. Um, I didn't grow up with people teaching me what self-care looked like.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was leaving that relationship that I was able to figure it out for myself and to define it for myself. Because I didn't grow up around women, who they took care of they took care of their families. They took care of their
Hmm.
household, very strong women, they took care of their partners, but I rarely saw them putting that love back into themselves
Yeah.
you
Same.
know, even if it was just taking time away from the family, from the husband, from the house, or, and I know some moms may struggle with this too when it comes to like buying stuff for your kid versus buying something that you see for yourself. And, but the kid needs this, and how we as women deny ourselves, whether it's joy, whether it's pleasure, or sometimes it's even love. And I think once we choose to love ourselves, that's when that rebirth happens. It's almost like something clicks,
Mm.
and you ultimately start making decisions based on that idea of how you love yourself.
Yeah.
And that
Mm.
takes time. I want the girls to know
It
it
does.
takes time when you're going through the motions and separating and just throughout stages of womanhood, you know,
Yeah.
you redefine yourself over and over and over again.
Mm.
Give it
Yeah.
some time.
Lots of time. When everything happened with my ex, I wasn't like sure. It was like me, I was now trying to like save everything. It's like, no, 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 come back, come back, come back. I can save this, I can
Mm.
save this, I can save this. And it was like at some point I had to surrender. So now like I'm in the surrendering place and I'm just like, oh, I can do what it is I've desired to do.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, like, I started getting back into my yoga practice, right? Because it's like, so food for thought. If whatever you do that takes care of you, this person or any person start pulling you away from that,
Hmm.
run, red flag.
Yes, gotta go.
Yeah, quickly now. Because there's a reason why that is your practice. There's a reason why that has been your self-care, right? There's a sense of self in that. And when it comes to a point where you're not able to do that, or there's a time constraint on when you can do it, or there's a way that you have to do it, or I mean, to the point where like I asked him to help film like a yoga vinyasa that I was doing and it got messed up. He was like, "Oh, well, it wasn't that good anyway." And I was just like,
Mm.
"I'm sorry. What?" And like
Yeah.
that just
Wow.
lingered in my head, right? So it's
Wow.
like once the air was clear, I was like, I'm ready to get some more certifications,
Hmm.
right? I'm ready to expand on this a little bit more. And I told myself, I was like, Ashley, whatever certifications you now do, they will not be in America.
Mm. Wow.
So I did my research, and I believe that summer I went to Peru to get my 300 hour. And then a couple weeks after that, went to Costa Rica to get certified
He
in
was on the
Yin
go.
and Yoga Nidra, right? Well, Yin.
Wow.
And I was just like, yeah, I'm doing this for myself. And even still being attached to that person, even though they weren't in the home, it was like, well, you didn't ask my permission. And I boldly said to them, I didn't think I needed to,
Mm.
because this is something I needed to do for me.
Yeah. That's that self-advocacy.
So once the money stops flowing towards them, and I started putting it back into my pot and doing what I needed for me, right? Because that wasn't just self care for me. That was also, okay, how can I expand on my teachings, right?
Yeah.
Like this is now we talking about purpose and business and self care, all of it mixed in one, right? So yeah, I was like, yeah, no, I'm doing this for me. And I'm so glad I said yes.
But you said yes. You said yes. And
Yes.
I want the listeners to pull that out. You have to say yes to yourself, Um, say yes to the things that you enjoy. Say yes to the pleasure. Say yes to the joy. Say yes to traveling. And it's interesting how you made that decision for yourself and it kind of put some distance in between you guys.
Hmm.
And ultimately it sounded like it opened up your world into you experiencing something greater, more of yourself, at a greater
Yeah.
capacity. Um, for anybody who follows me on Instagram at Intuitive Keys, I recently posted a reading, and from this same deck that I've been using during our episodes, and two of the cards that came out was worthiness and feeling safe. And I
Mm,
said, it sat with me for a minute. I really had to sit with that, on the worthiness wound. And I said, okay, God, like which way we leading with this? But in reference to like self-care, and
mhm.
self-love, and how so many of us have had circumstances or life experiences where where we don't know what love is, or
Mm,
how to define it, let alone how to give it back to ourselves. And
yeah.
this feeling of unworthiness, from what that reading told me, was that sometimes we settle thinking that it's better than having nothing and that it's good enough. And when it came to feeling safe, it brought me back to a lot of like childhood wounds that a lot of women, it's specifically Black women, I'll say, the wounds that we have around feeling worthy, feeling deserving of love, which can go back into like how we were cared for, or wounds that may be still present from our parents or the people who were supposed to take care of us. Because
Yeah.
if you listen to last episode, Ashleie mentioned something about the mother being the first home to the child.
Hmm.
And being that the mother is the first home, a lot of things, even the way that the beliefs that we have, whether it's about ourselves, relationships, or how we view the world, it's shaped from the people who cared about us, because that's our first home. They're our first
Yeah.
teachers. So if you had a mom or another parent who was like emotionally unavailable, who you didn't see love in your household, how can you build that for yourself when you don't even know what that looks like?
Mm, mm,
And that unworthy
mhm.
wound, what it is it's a deep belief that you are inadequate, that you are broken, or that you are less than. And it's often within your childhood experiences that gets imprinted onto you. So it's like, wow, I sat myself back like, well, damn, okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Um, because I actually went through that process when it came to my self-care journey and diving back into the wounds that I had from childhood. So, and I even teach this to my clients that I work with, but you have to get down to the root.
Yeah.
And I really have to
Yeah.
make a list of, what does love look like to you? There's no right or wrong answers, but like, what does love look like to you? When I asked myself and myself said, I said, okay, my self care needs to have compartments. I need to have physical self care. I need to have a
Mm,
mental self care, a spiritual self care, and like an emotional like self care, you know.
yeah.
And I started to structure, my life and my days around making sure I do something, even if it's just one thing to hit one of those boxes.
I love that.
So it was like, okay, mental, I gotta go talk. Like, and I didn't. So I started therapy after that relation, but I didn't start right away.
Mm,
I didn't start therapy until years after. So
mm,
during that span of time before I was even in therapy, I started to date myself again. And I was like, within that relationship for 8 years, I never really been on a date. So I didn't know like what's really supposed to happen in a healthy relationship. And I said, okay, what are we gonna do? I'm gonna do things that scare me. And for me, that was doing things by myself. I didn't want to feel alone.
mm.
So I started taking myself out. Like I would go to the movies. I would go sit at the bar, y'all. And you just meet people. But I think it's helpful for women to get into and well to start, trusting that you'll be okay, even if you're not surrounded by a lot of people. You know,
Mm.
it's okay to take yourself out on a date.
Yes.
Self-love, self-care. It's okay to say, okay, maybe I need my outer avatar. Maybe I want to do something like a little pick me up. Maybe I want to go get my hair
Mhm.
done. Maybe I want to get my nails done. Maybe I want a new outfit, okay? Or maybe you need something deeper, like maybe you need silence.
Mm.
Maybe you need time to yourself.
Yeah.
So really get into the habit of like identifying and sitting with yourself and asking yourself, like, self, what do we need? What do we need that I can give myself? Don't know how to spend a lot of whole money. If you choose to, that's your thing. But there's things that you can do to practice the art of self-love and self-care. And it really just sit down, it starts and begins with you identifying what feels good.
Yeah. That feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like in the visualization, right? I had to learn that, right? So now it's like once I start learning what feels good, like because this outer world is always going to look a little crazy,
Right.
right? Sometimes people present in a way that's not authentic to how they feel. So I always come back to, does this feel good, right? Does this feel like it is helping me? Is it draining me? Is it like, what is it? How does it feel? And then making my move from there. I'm in a master's program right now, and I got to get to a point where I'm not staying up. I'm not staying up.
Yes, boundaries.
I'm not. I did it twice, and I said, Lord, help me not do this again. But we're not staying up all night. And
Hmm.
does it feel good to be trying to answer a discussion question and I can't even read because I'm tired?
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So it's like as you evolve, that question and the answer to it is going to look completely different, right?
Yeah.
And you got to stay with it.
Ah, yes.
You got to
Yes.
stay with it, right?
This
So
practice.
journaling, yes, it's a literal practice, right? And
Yes.
Key, I love how you broke down making sure that the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional, right? Because those are what make us up, right? If we think about four elements, all four
Yes.
elements live within us, right? So we're always going to need something with a little fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe changing it that way, right?
Mm.
What can I eat that's gonna like, am I craving something fiery? What do I need to eat or what do I need to drink? Right. So maybe it's ginger, maybe it's some, my son loves those taki things, right? What do I need? The water element. He mentioned taking baths, right?
Yes.
When it rains, I mean it was snowing a little earlier. I like just let the snow hit my face and was just like, this feels good, right? Maybe
Mhm.
sometimes it's I just want to go wash my face. Those routines that kind of keep you going, keep you afloat. Um, it's a practice because, and Key, you mentioned this earlier, like when you felt sad, you didn't know like really how to maneuver, right?
Yeah.
Are we doing these practices even on the days where we don't feel it?
So that's tough. It is tough. Um, it is tough. On those days, I'm not gonna lie, I had to give myself a little bit of grace. That's where grace comes in,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I realized here's something I realized recently, y'all. So recently I started going to the gym again. I'm in the gym 3 times a week now. Thank you, thank you.
Get it,
Because I
girl.
realized that my part of my self-care is making sure my body is intact. Because for me as a woman, I not only want to feel good, but I want to look good, okay? Call me vain, but I love who I see in the mirror, and working on my body does something for my mental health because it allows me to see the change and growth in real time. And also
That's good.
that change takes time. Your body's not going to change
Hmm.
overnight. So there are some days where it's like, I don't want to go to the gym. And I sit with that. I still I have gotten myself on autopilot where it's like my body, it just gets up now. But on those
Hmm.
days that I struggle, I have to go back why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And that's something
Mm.
about my self-discovery journey that I've had to remind myself of and go back to, why are we doing this? Why are you doing this? Because the journey through self-love and self-care is a journey back, I call it back home, but back to you, who you truly are at your core.
Yeah.
Despite what like the narcissist may have told you, or your parents, or just the outside views that's the like that society may have and say about women. What am I doing this for? And
Yeah.
it's actually helped me stay on track to remind myself you're doing this not only to look good, so that you feel better, so that your thoughts, have a way to be channeled into a physical activity. Or if I'm struggling, let's say one day I'm sad or I'm just not in the best headspace,
Hmm.
movement in general has been really helpful for me. I know you said you started the yoga. What I started doing as part of my self-care, and even on that rediscovery of self, was dance. Literally moving
Mm.
my body, you know.
Hmm.
And for those of you, for the womb holders, we as women, we tend to store a lot of our repressed emotions and trauma, especially those emotional wounds, in our womb.
Yeah.
And what helps release that is movement, whether it's any type of dance, whether it's yoga. It's okay to twerk. It's healing, okay? It's healing. When you feel your butt jiggle a little bit, when you watching yourself, you're like, oh, I look sexy. You want to embody that more. That's also a part of self-love and self-care.
Yeah.
So give yourself grace on the days that you don't feel like you want to do it, but always come back to your why on why you're doing it, and show up for yourself, because that's self-care as
Yeah.
well.
Mm. Yeah.
Staying committed to yourself.
Yeah, if you tell yourself you're gonna do something, right? I feel
Yeah.
like that accountability with self is a lot more um deeper. That's not the word I'm looking for, but you know what I'm saying? Like that word is bond is a little bit more intense than,
Yeah.
you know, the word you give out to other people because that's character building,
Yeah.
right? That's keeping promises to yourself, right? That's learning how to retrust yourself. That's learning how
Yeah.
to recommit to yourself. And then once you start building those practices with you, it shows in the relationships around you. So I wrote a book called Married to Trauma. And in the book, it
That's
is
off the.
in the book towards the end, I talk about remarrying myself,
Mm.
right? And I started out with I do, right? It's literally saying I do to choosing me even when that feels hard,
Mm.
right? I do to keeping my word to myself. I do to loving myself even on the days where I feel like I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's really how are you learning to remarry you, right? Because that is like it's like the divorce and the marriage is happening at the same time, right? Coming
Mm-hmm.
out of that relationship. It's like, okay, what are my practices that are going to help divorce that version of me, but also remarry me? Like you said, I always say it to the God-given version of me, the design that he had,
Yeah.
that God had intended for me to be.
Yeah.
Um, so some tools for emotional recovery because I believe, and the more I like learn about stuff, your emotions and your spirit, your will, like all of that are tied into each other, right?
Yep.
You think about some of the songs you sing, they're like coming from the soul, right? You know what I'm saying? But they're talking about emotion, they're talking about love, they're talking about all these things. So some tools for emotional recovery. One of my favorites, I love to write until I don't, journaling,
Oh, me too.
right?
One of my faves.
Journaling. I have journals out the wazoo. I keep all of them. Sometimes I like to just kind of see, my own growth, and I'll get one and just flip it open and be like, wow, right? Because then you get to see your growth. You get
Yeah.
to see, okay, I prayed for this and now I'm standing in it.
Yes, writing is powerful.
It's very powerful. It is a manifestation, right? It's no
Absolutely.
matter, oof, no matter the depths of the pain, something about even I remember when I first started being intentional with therapy, right? Therapy is also part of that self-care process. And I came home and I told my partner then at that time that I just needed a minute to myself. They respected that space. And I remember I just wrote in my journal in big bold letters, why did this have to happen to me?
Mm.
Right? I was unpacking some childhood trauma, and it was like my body and everything was like, okay, we're ready for you to heal this now. And I'm now, at that point in time, I just remember, and I wrote it in red too,
Mm.
right?
That's that
Because I
passion coming
needed,
up. That's that
yeah,
anger. Mm-hmm.
it all of it, right? That inner
Yeah.
child was angry and trying to figure out, oh, I didn't even know that this was abuse.
Mm.
Why didn't so even, and I think people misconstrued what journaling has to look like, where it's like,
Yeah.
dear diary, I love da 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 da, or like the Moesha thing, with the
Yeah.
theme music in the back,
Yes.
right? Journaling can literally look like, I effing blah 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 blah. There's no rhyme or reason to what it looks like. The purpose of it is clearing,
Yeah. Yeah.
clearing what is sitting in the soul, clearing what is sitting in the heart. I can count the number of pages in my journals that also have teardrops in them,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
because there's such a sweet relief in. I mean, I'm still like, I'm still printing. I'm always going to be a pen to paper girl. I can't read on these tablets and
Same.
things. Right. But it's like there's something there's something like releasing about you physically holding a pen, pencil, crown, whatever it is, and being intentional about releasing
Yeah.
what it is. Because sometimes you're not always going to have the
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 word.
actual articulation of the words, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that's how you help yourself find your voice and tap into those emotions, tap into, because there's more emotions that we have. There's a wide range that we possess outside of happy, sad, angry. You know what I'm saying? Like those basic ones that we like to teach our kids, right? Let yourself tap into that, right? And I think a lot of people are afraid of the vulnerability with self. I think you're, people
Sitting
brush
on it
off that.
already.
Yeah.
That vulnerability, and I was once a person who wasn't ready for that. So I'm
Mm,
also a journaler. I've been writing since I was a kid, and it's in my adulthood I realized that I started writing more once I left that relationship. Is because I feel like I didn't at the time I wasn't interested in therapy because of things that I was taught about it. Therapy
mm,
is for quote unquote white folks. Black people, we don't really need this, and how that stigma surrounding going to talk to somebody about your own stuff. you know
yeah.
so writing was my therapy, and it was my release. It was the channel for me to speak to. And I tell everybody to this day, my journal is an entity, because when I come to it, it's almost like sometimes it'll call me to it, and then it'll kick into my brain like, oh shoot, I haven't journaled. Almost like my journal calls me when it's time for me to release something, or if I'm stuck trying
Yeah.
to move through some energy or some feelings that may be difficult to articulate with words. Um, one of the tools that also helps me is something that's called mirror work, where
Mm,
and I didn't start doing mirror work until I was out my mama house when I had like a full length mirror. I think every woman should own a full length mirror. Okay? You
yes.
guys hear me? Get a full length mirror. Make room for it. They got them at Walmart on sale. They on the Amazons. Okay, go get a full length mirror, because I think it is important that you fully see yourself. And I tell my clients this. It's an exercise I use. I'm gonna give y'all little tips. Okay. I tell my clients like this through an exercise, and they'll come up with some affirmations, and I'll say get naked, strip.
I
I
love
want them to
this.
take it off.
Yeah.
Take it. I mean, like everything, like no makeup, no nothing. I want you to fully get naked, and I advise them to just sit with yourself, and the
Mm.
things that come up during sessions about, how they view themselves, and then we break that down, just because, like, the things that you see about yourself sometimes aren't from you, but they're the projections of other people, especially if you've been in a traumatic relationship, as being in a relationship with a narcissistic person, and the things that they can say to you that you actually start to believe about yourself.
Mm.
So mirror work
Mm-hmm.
was really important for me. And it not only helped me through like healing from that relationship, but it helped me see me for me. And then I realized,
Yeah.
like, girl, you don't have to hate your body just because it's not shaped, how you think women, how you think beauty looks, the way society says that beauty is. And just because your body isn't shaped like them doesn't mean that you're unlovable. And when I was in that relationship, that's what they used against me. Or they would try to make me feel, some type of way about my body or my looks. And it made me feel less than.
Mm.
Mirror work
Mm.
really reminded me that you're that girl. Okay.
Yeah.
And it made me look at my scars, even the scars
Mm.
that may not have been physical on my body, but that were like placed on my soul.
Yeah.
So stripping naked, the emotions,
Powerful.
the eruption of emotions that come out of this, doing this simple practice, and I
Yeah.
tell you, take your time with it, because you may want to hit the mirror, you may not like what you see, and that's a beautiful place to start at, because
Yeah.
then you'll know what areas and where you can pour love into, whether it's confidence about your body, or falling back in love with your natural beauty, or falling back in love with your hair, or the way your boobs look. Okay, if you've given birth, maybe you have what's called the mom pouch, but knowing that you carry life moved through you.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Mm-hmm.
such a powerful practice for me, and I encourage you guys, go get the full length mirror, because it works. It is a
Yeah.
tool that works, and that can be simple and can be done confidence of your home, the safety of your zone of your home.
Yeah. Mm. I love the mirror work. I started doing that too, because I was very like weird about my body. I was always taller than everybody. I was always, and then you put baby weight on there and it's like you got stretch
Yeah,
marks. And
yeah,
um I grew faster than a lot of other girls too. So I have like I call them tiger stripes now, honey,
yes.
on on
Okay.
my body. And it's like at some point, like I love that you shared that and you do that with your clients. I had to do that with myself too, and now it's to the point where, girl, I might go brush my teeth in the morning naked, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror like, we got this, you
Yes,
powerful, like affirming myself and looking
yes,
myself in my own eyes and letting myself know you are that chick. You
yes,
are powerful. You are a great mother. No one can take anything away from you that God did not give to them to take away from you. You know what I'm saying? Like really
yeah.
affirming myself in that space. Um, Another practice, mindfulness. I'm not a fan of the word mindfulness. Let's just call it what it is, meditation.
Yeah,
Right? I think sometimes we bring too much of the religious context into, what's a spiritual practice, what's not. Is it godly? Is it not?
yeah,
Does it align with you?
right. Does it feel good? Simple. Does
Does it
this
feel
feel
good?
good?
Right. And we all meditate.
Yes.
It's the question is, what are you meditating on?
Yeah.
Are you meditating on the voice of your abuser? Or
Mm.
are you meditating on the voice of your higher self, of the divine, of God, whoever you subscribe to? Are you meditating on someone who's done a meditation and has gifted that to the world? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you meditating on?
Yeah.
Um, I believe I may have shared it, but I do this with my clients where it's like the metacognition, right? Being able to catch yourself in the thoughts, in the pattern of your thoughts, right? When we talk about the practice of meditation, right? And I know everybody sees and it's like I got to sit all stuffy and be all, it's like the posture, but it's let's I can talk about yoga for days, but let's remove the posture, right?
Yeah.
And the posture is the posture of your mind,
Yeah.
the posture of your heart, posture of your soul, right? Because your posture of your body could be, you could be laying down, you could be walking, right? Meditation. There's walking meditations where you're like you're being very mindful of left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, right? When I was in Cambodia, amazing people I met. This one lady, she taught me this other kind of meditation. I can't remember the name of it, but it was just it was so it's very advanced, but it's I think the beginning stages of it is, can you be mindful of every single movement, right? The point of mindfulness is to get you in the present moment.
Yes.
It's to bring you back from the anxiety of the future, right? Or sitting in the past, the anxiety of the past, or like ruminating on what hasn't changed, right? Like he talked about giving yourself grace in, okay, I knew I caught that flag. Why didn't I do anything about it, right? It happened.
Yeah.
Use it as part of your journey, right? So there's all kinds of different meditative practices that you can do. I always say for people, keep it on the safe side, prayer meditation, right? Because that's communication with the divine. I did a podcast episode on prayer and meditation, not medication. It is medicine, but but on prayer and meditation, right? Where prayer is us talking to the divine, prayer is us talking to God. Meditation is us sitting and being still and waiting for response,
Mm. Yeah.
right? Because
It's
sometimes we're like,
it's gonna come on time.
right. We like to throw up these Hail Marys and like, well, why you ain't answering me yet? You might be answering that prayer and you just aren't present
Right.
to even catch it, right? And what makes this such a beautiful healing practice is you got to think about a lot that comes with abuse also. We're talking about anxiety, we're talking about fear, we're talking about constant questioning of yourself,
Easy.
all of these things, right? The consistency of doing this, and it could be 5 minutes a day, and then you add a little bit more, 7 minutes, add a little bit more, right? I would highly recommend the Insight Timer app.
Mhm.
I got on there to like start figuring out how to teach on there, but then I started using it for myself, and there's plethora of options. So, and it's free. So check in, tap into that, and see what's there that you can start utilizing. They do a lot of stuff for beginners. On my YouTube page and on the podcast, I do visualizations, all of that too. But give yourself that present moment. Give yourself that moment to be with you and just notice what's happening here.
Yeah.
Because then you'll be able to notice what's happening here. And then you'll be able to notice what's happening in your soul.
Yeah.
Being very aware. You become very aware, very in tune, right? The present moment is the gift. And that's where your healing is going to be.
Yeah. I think I think for a lot of people, there may be a struggle when it comes to meditating and feel like they have to like
Hmm.
silence their minds and like all these other thoughts. And for me, when meditation was when I first started to meditate, it was just simply allowing those thoughts to come up and not like being upset that they came up and just trying to observe what thoughts were coming up, which was my answer as to like what my soul was sitting with, you know?
Yeah.
Another tool that helped me coming out of that relationship was also it's interesting because I grew up in the church. My family Hebrew Israelites, and I was in church Friday, beginning of the Sabbath day, which was Saturday, and I started to lose my connection to the church within that relationship. Okay. If you guys
Mhm.
went listen to our other episodes and the isolation that being in a traumatic, an abusive relationship will put you through and how it'll take you from not only your family, but your social settings as well. you know? So coming out of that relationship, what tool that works for me was getting into tarot. And it was so interesting. I saw somebody at a bookstore one day on Instagram, and I was like, I'm gonna take myself on a date. And that was one of the dates that I took myself on was to a bookstore on West 14th Street, if you live in New York City.
Love.
And they had so many decks and just like books on the mind and emotions. And I was like a kid in the candy store because I love to learn. So
Hmm.
something within me was like, "Ooh, go look at that. Go get that." And I was like, "Okay." And I went and picked up my very first deck. And the intuitive keys you guys see here literally is because of that bookstore. From me walking in and
Mm.
using tarot and what tarot uses. I feel like I know some church people, depending on where you listen this from or where you at in your religion or versus spirituality. But tarot is a tool of it is a tool of not only reflection, but it's also a tool that can be used to help you rebuild your sense of trust and also rebuild your intuition.
Yeah.
Each card is has an image on it, and from what your own intuition picks up will be the answer for you. For people who are more visual, because tarot meditation became a thing for me where I would go, that was my quiet time to myself. I would go, and I still do
Mm.
it. It's part of my practice now where I'll get up in the morning, I'll make me some tea, and it's like, okay, what's the card for the week? To let me know what I may be experiencing, what I should look out for. But it was a way for me to get back in tune with myself and also to be able to hear God, source, spirit, however you want to name it, a bit more
Yeah.
clearer. It was forced
Mm.
to sit down by
Hmm.
through the use of symbolism, and me interpreting that would be my answer. It's kind of like my prayers being heard, through pulling cards. I started to believe that God is directly talking to me through the cards based on what type of cards were coming out at the time.
Yeah.
And it was such a healing tool for me. Literally, not only did it help me trust myself, but it really showed me like, oh girl, you got a gift. There's something there, you know?
Mm.
And then I'm like,
Hmm.
ooh, it's like, oh, share it. And it's like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm scared. No, 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 no.
Mm.
And ultimately, that is what you guys see today. Or if you follow me, on social media throughout these years and really watch my journey, it brought me closer and home, like to myself and in that
Yeah.
connection with myself. So it doesn't when we go back to like self-care and that self-love and any healing practice or tool, it really goes back to what feels good, you know? For some people, maybe that tool for you is church, where you need to be in the
Yeah.
church house or getting up, routinely, whatever days you choose to go to church and participate in that. And maybe that is a healing tool for you. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's working out. Maybe it is silence and space. Maybe it's dressing up, your physical body. For me,
Yeah.
self-care and self-love is about what feels good, what feels safe, what makes me feel empowered.
Yeah. Mm.
And that
I
sounds
know we said it. Yeah. I know we said it off air, but I'm gonna say it again because I love how you tied in that not only was this a healing practice for you, it's now part of your purpose,
yeah.
which is self-care, right?
Yes.
Because and my pastor said it before and it blew me out the water. We don't get to choose. It wasn't my pastor, it's another one I listened to. Sorry. We don't get to choose how we heal.
Mm.
We do not get to choose how we heal. When I started therapy, like when I got intentional about it, right? I was actually taking my son to
Mm.
start going into therapy because he was just hyperactive. But he was 5 at the time, I believe, or 4. And the therapist was just like, "Oh, well, let's get to know mom first." And I was like, "Sure about that?" Like, and
Ooh.
that's when we started unpacking childhood trauma and all of that. We were talking about childhood sexual abuse that I'd experienced. And she mentioned yoga. I thought I was pregnant again and felt kicks in my stomach.
Mm.
right? We don't get to choose how we heal,
Yeah.
right? Because, and Key, from what I hear you saying is like it went not against, but it went against what you would already know to be a healing place, right? To
Yeah.
be that spiritual practice, right? Same here. It was like the minute I got into yoga, I was like, I don't understand this, but it's doing something for me.
Mm.
And I just kept going and going. And then I remember I write about this. I on my podcast. I was laying in shavasana. Well, first time I was in child's pose, and that's when it started opening up for me. Right? You talk about the hips, talk about
Mm-hmm.
the open heart. I mean, in child's pose, your front body is exposed, but it's grounding. Right? We're talking
Yeah.
about now grounding techniques. And I just cried. My therapist was with me in that session. She gave me a journal. We got to talking about it. I kept going. Another session I went by myself. I'm laying in Shavasana and something hit. And all I remember hearing internally was if this is how my body is feeling, like healing from childhood trauma
Mm-hmm.
at my big age, I can only imagine the kids that I was working with and their trauma that they're currently going through,
Mm-hmm.
what they are experiencing in their body.
Wow. That's wild.
So, yeah. So when we talk about our healing practices, right? When you are being used by God, you don't get to choose. Ooh, I just got chills. You don't get to choose how this game goes,
Yeah.
right? You can manifest and want to have certain kinds of lives, but when you are truly being used to create healing spaces, I don't want to say heal people, but create healing spaces for other people, right? You're bringing people back to their divine self,
Yeah.
right? So having that thought, I ran with it. And now I'm doing kids yoga for like for ages 3 to 5 who are having those behavioral challenge, who don't know how to control impulses. I'm doing trauma yoga for
Wow.
women who have experienced abuse, or, just incorporating it into whatever kind of class I'm teaching, because we all have some trauma. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it made me learn about abuse. It made me learn about my abuse. It made me learn about the cycles I was in. And now the flip side of that is creating these programs and workshops and helping people. Like, it's always funny when people come to my classes and they come consistently. There's things that I say that I don't even realize I say. And so, like on Instagram or something, they'll be like, "Oh, I heard somebody say that's beautiful, and I heard about you." Because anytime in my class, when people get into postures and everybody looks different in that posture, I love seeing that.
Yeah.
I love seeing that. I'm like, beautiful. That's beautiful. That's beautiful, right? I'm always saying, get out of the body, get out of the mind, and get into
That's
your
right.
body,
Yes.
right? Get out of the mind, get into your body. Stop thinking
Yes.
about it. How does it feel, right? Coming back to that, right? So we don't get to choose how we heal, right? And even that is a practice in sitting with self and asking self, what do I need today?
Yeah.
And you might be guided, like you got guided to that bookstore. You might be guided to rollerblade.
Yeah. It's
Who
actually it's
knows?
interesting because we got guided to do this series. Okay. And the series came about from like me having an idea. And this was based on a free card pull that I did. That I was just putting out, to the collective. And it made me think, and I hope you guys listen to like our past episode 2. Where it says like some things, people, relationships will be used as catalysts, you know, um, for your evolution.
Mm, mm,
And once I started to adopt that perspective and seeing where I am now, it took that experience to happen in order for me to get to know myself and to identify what love looks like, for me to heal my own wounds. And the trajectory it took me on, it led me to sharing my spiritual gifts, which has now become my profession. when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about rebirth and and within within my coaching and helping women rebirth themselves. Oh, I'm a full spectrum doula for anybody who doesn't know. So not only do I help women birth babies, but I also help women return home and rebirth themselves. In that
Mm.
process, it it's almost like I became the person that I needed during that specific time. I needed that space. I needed the spaces that people like us create. Not many women know that there's spaces like this available where we see you. We've been there. Some of us are
Yeah.
still in it or navigating it, or some of us has been able to alchemize that experience and ultimately have it work in our favor because it opens you up to who you truly are at your core. And for some people, your soul's purpose. We
Yeah.
don't get to choose how we heal. Sometimes we think we know what our purpose is, and then God intervenes, and it's like, but this is your purpose. This is where I need you. This is where other people may be struggling, and they need you. And
Mm-hmm.
we have been given these tools, no matter whether it's yoga, whether it's church, whether it's praying, no matter what the tool is. We all get our different tools during different stages in our healing time. That also
Yeah.
serve its purpose. When you mentioned the pose, the very first time I did yoga, I started crying too. I didn't know what that was. And it blew my mind on the mechanisms of the body and how we really
Yeah.
the body keeps score.
It really does. All
And
the scores.
some yoga poses, it brought that to the forefront for me. Like your body keeps scoring. You may have moved on, but some things are still within your body. you know.
Mm.
So I do
Mm-hmm.
my light yoga now, okay, but I give it up to the yogis and the poses. But it essentially is something that I do want to incorporate more into my practice. And I've allowed myself to start like intuitive dancing, which is just letting my body flow no matter how it looks. It may not look coordinated at all, but it's that movement. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll do some yoga poses as a way to help that energy flush out. I've also
Yeah.
gotten into womb healing, which is a practice of mine, and
Mm-hmm.
becoming a womb practitioner, helping women heal those and release that stored trauma within the body. Even those who have experienced, some type of assault on the body or assault of the soul, or sexual
Mm.
assault, because this body keeps score, and it's like, how do we release that in a safe space? You know,
Yeah.
so all the things. If I can encourage anybody listening to this episode, it is to really figure out what works when you identifying not only what self-love looks like, but how do you want to be cared for? Just because you may have accepted less in the past, it doesn't mean that that's still the trajectory of where you're going. So
Yeah.
maybe you're in this journey of loving yourself and you don't have space for nobody else, and that is okay.
That is very okay.
Ashleie said she was out here playing Cupid, giving flowers to people that she loved, and that it did something to her. It made her happy. That brought
Yeah.
her joy. She's in pink. Okay, that is the heart space. It's love. It's softness. You know what I'm talking about? My soft girl era. Soft girl could also mean you're not taking no BS,
Mm-mm.
but you are giving that love back to yourself. One of my favorite colors is red.
Mm-hmm. Power.
The power, the passion. But if you listen to that last episode, we also spoke about rage and anger. I think that Medusa card
Mm-hmm.
came out. It stuck with me a little bit. Because to make that hard decision, I had to get fed up not only with the relationship, but myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And I
My grandma
need,
used to say, "You ain't tired of yourself
are
enough."
you tired of yourself yet? Are you tired
Yeah.
of this yet? And it was me taking accountability. So red for me is a sign of passion. And sometimes passion can look like love, but it can also look like anger. And to me, I look at anger as being righteous. Sometimes
Mm.
I don't want to cuss, but anger gets things done. Anger is that energy. It's that fire energy you was talking about. That
Mm-hmm.
it change when you initiate change. And I always want to
Yeah.
make sure that on this ever changing of life, I'm always evolving. So red helps me know that change can come, change can be beautiful, change can also be messy and painful, but change leads to evolution.
Mm.
And
Mm.
using colors is also called like color therapy, where you can start to wear the color that you want to feel. If you feeling dark, don't want some blue, don't want some green. Green is the heart chakra. Okay, red, root chakra. Pink can go with the heart chakra. Don't want some green,
Mm,
feel grounded. You know, you want to get in touch with source or sit with God, or if you into African spirituality, it's called your aura thrown on purple, the color of royalty,
mm,
and that
mm.
spiritual connection. We're deep blue if you're trying to connect, you're trying to open up your third eye a little bit, where you want to see what's not visible to the eyes.
Yeah. Key, before you said that, I kept having this vision, and you just confirmed it. I keep having this vision of a woman standing in her closet and like not trembling, but there's like a fear or discouragement to put on something that's yellow. It's like they're
Mm.
wearing black. Oh, I can see it. They're wearing black, but it's like they're ready for this transition. They're ready for what is coming next, but there's fear, and it's like they're reaching for the yellow, and there's like hesitation or something. There's like hesitation in them putting it on, but they have it in hand. They have it in hand. You have it right there. Don't be afraid for that transition. Sometimes we are in control of our own transition. You have the power, you have the authority to move from that black to that yellow. Mm,
Go ahead, channelers. I say spirit be taking over, spirit be taking over. I got a little teary-eyed listening to that. Because not only do I like red, but I'm also usually in a lot of black.
mm,
I'm also, and I have been hearing spirit say, "Come away from that black." Like, come, and it's like black is
mm,
supposed to be as much as people, black absorbs a lot of energy. Black is also a symbol of protection.
mm-hmm,
Think about when you in the womb and you in dark spaces, and sometimes that dark space is a protection from the outside world.
mm-hmm.
I just brought a yellow candle the other day. Before this episode, I cleansed my yellow candle. Okay. But though so the Orisha in Yoruba African spirituality and tradition, within the tradition of Ifa, the Orisha, who usually resembles yellow, and it's funny because you have her sunflowers behind you, is Oshun. And Oshun is the Orisha of not only the fresh waters or the river, but she's also the Orisha of sweetness.
Mm, mm,
She's also a protector. She's also a fierce protector
mm.
of women and children. Her flowers are sunflowers. Her colors are usually gold or the golden yellow. I see that orange, that looks like an orange flower behind you. And
Mm-hmm.
Oshun walks with me.
Mm,
So you seeing the darkness and that yellow, and almost like it's calling you, it's almost like being called into the light,
yeah.
stepping out of that darkness and getting into the light. That card that I pulled at the beginning of this episode had the lions on it, and lions rule that royalty. Think of like king in the jungle,
Yeah.
and that yellow is also the color of the solar plex chakra, which is confidence,
Yes.
willpower, will drive, okay? That inner self-esteem and how you feel
Mm-hmm.
about yourself. So I'm very grateful for you
Mm,
channeling that in this moment, and for her energy and her presence coming
yeah.
into this. Um,
Mm,
it's super confirming for me, and I do hope that it is also confirming for anybody who may be watching or listening to this episode, that it's encouraging you to, almost like it's giving you a push to step out and step into the light, step out of the darknesses into the light, and
mm,
trusting yourself is an act of self-care. It is an
yeah.
act of self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that, Ashley. Thank you so much.
Thank you for confirming it, because sometimes I'm like, am
When
I making this
your
up? And then
spiritual
you,
gifts start to come online, they hit with a punch. They hit with a punch. And you allow
yeah, I was
yourself to
like,
trust yourself in that moment to deliver the
mhm.
message.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
I
grateful.
noticed too what happens if I don't. I start to feel yeah. That's an awful night
We'll get into
conversation.
that. As a
But yeah,
spiritualist, I know if you don't share the message, your body, your soul won't be able to rest. until you get it out.
Yeah.
For you. God is about to, it's like, I just heard God is trying to tell you something. I love that for you. I love
I'm
that.
glad you received that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope
And
that it
whoever else
resonated
it
with
was
somebody else
for.
who may be listening who however it resonated to you. Because everybody's going to get something different from the message.
Right. 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 And then you might not get nothing. That's okay
That's
too.
cool too.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool too. Somebody got a prayer closet. Sometimes you got to go in the prayer closet. Oh, self-love and the self-care. If I can leave you guys with anything, is the greatest love of all is the love of self. And trusting yourself is an act of self-care. Knowing that you can make hard decisions, even if it hurts, is still an act of self-care. So show yourself some love throughout the rest of this month, rest of this year, or just think about ways where you can implement more self-love into your everyday. You know, how you can implement self-care into your everyday or even into your week or once a month. Just do something to give to give back to yourself because you pour so much from other people.
All I heard was Whitney Houston. I decided long ago.
Never get anyone. Oh, that's a chat. Sorry, y'all. I don't know, Ashley, but the episode we supposed to keep this on a time limit. But now that you say that song, it says I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadows. You know, and you spoke about that darkness and coming out of the closet and being in the shadow. And how sometimes we as women, we can fall into the shadow of other people. Where we dim our own light. We don't shine or put our gifts. Even some of us who are you got some spiritual gifts going on that you may have questioned if it was what it was. And it's almost like you're being encouraged to move forward because it's the vision is going to expand for you. So it's saying come out of the shadows of that self-doubt and that not trusting yourself. I'm gonna go listen to Whitney.
I know. I'm like, what? Do it? Apple Music, Spotify.
It's all in me. Use music. I won't come baby. I do it naturally, and it's like, ooh, I am. Okay. Yes.
Oh, I love y'all. I love this. Key, I love you.
I love you.
Oh my gosh, this has been amazing. I hope y'all have been blessed by it. I hope you've been blessed. Go love on yourselves. Go love on yourselves. Oh, these shirts. Yes. Love on yourselves. Take time for you.
Yes. And stay tuned, guys. This is 3. We're heading into episode 4. And episode 4 is open yourself up to love again. Y'all, I'm almost into my marriage. I got some stuff to share. Okay? About this.
I can't wait.
I'm excited.
Take care. We'll see you guys next week.
Yes, take care.